Robert Kiyosaki is author of the best-selling personal finance book of all time. He's a financial maverick whose renegade views have changed the way that tens of millions of people think about their finances. He has a secret. It's what the rich know about money that the poor don't.
What most people do, because they have no financial education, they want some person to tell them what to do. So one of the worst questions I have heard, probably, if not 10 times, probably 100,000 times, is I have $10,000, I have $1 million, whatever. What should I do with my money? And I suspect some of you are out here today hoping I'm going to tell you what to do with your money. And ladies and gentlemen, I am an educator, not a parasite, okay? I am not here to tell you what to do with your money. My only advice is, if you don't know what to do with your money, keep your mouth shut. Because if you raise your hand and says, hello, I'm an idiot, I know nothing, and I got $1 million, what should I do with it? You'll have more friends than you can count, you know what I mean? How many people know exactly what I'm talking about here? Everybody knows what to do with your money, and that idea is give it to them. So I'm not going to give you answers. Education isn't about answers. So your decision is this: do I leave here today and I'm just going to turn my money over to the bank? Or am I going to invest in my financial education? One takes longer. And there's no guarantees. But you have a better chance. That's all I'm saying.
Get a job has got to be the oldest advice in the world. You disagree?
Well, if you look at what's going on globally right now, South Africa has a 25% unemployment rate. It's actually higher. America lies. They say we have a 5% unemployment rate, but it's really 27%. It's just how the government defines unemployed. So if I mow somebody's lawn one day a year, I'm employed. And that's how the US government counts it. So there's growing, I call it the lost generation, because when my generation, it was really easy. You went to school, you got a job. But today, you come out of school, all you have is student loan debt. You know, it's
this
terrible.
blows me away that student loan debt in the United States is bigger than home loan debt.
It's bigger than credit card debt.
Wow.
Student loan debt now is the biggest source of income for the US government. Not taxes, student loan debt from students who cannot pay off their loans.
And of course, we have this in South Africa. We've had a movement here, fees must fall, people taking to the streets because they want this college education because they believe that at the end of it, they're going to get a guaranteed job and they're going to be financially secure. And in fact, that's not the case, is it?
That's very naive thinking. The problem is the mindset. Go to school to get a job. You know, that was my poor dad, who was a PhD in education. Good guy, but PhD. You know, PhD stands for poor, helpless, and desperate. You know, they don't know much about money. They're smart guys. They're academics, but they need that paycheck. Whereas my poor dad, my best friend's father, he says, as an entrepreneur, you should learn how to create jobs. So, you know, I create jobs all the time. I don't have a job, but I create jobs. And that's the job of an entrepreneur.
This is the most bizarre thing. I mean, I studied economics at university, and I got out knowing nothing about how to create wealth for myself. It's the most bizarre thing. The school system doesn't do it. Higher education doesn't do it. The basic financial literacy, I mean, you would think that would be just a staple of any society. And I suppose what you do is you fill in that gap, don't you?
Well, I criticize it, and it has to be criticized, because I studied economics too. I learned nothing also, M1, M2, and M3, and this. And it's important to know, but it's not going to make you any money.
Should everyone be an entrepreneur?
Everybody is an entrepreneur, like it or not. But they go to school, and they're trained to be an employee. And they're trained by employees to be an employee. That's the tragedy, and people don't pick that up. In my neighborhood, I live in a very affluent neighborhood in Arizona, Scottsdale, Phoenix, Arizona. This young girl comes around, she put herself through college babysitting. She's an entrepreneur. Do you know what I mean? She just comes up, she says, I don't need a job, I'll babysit. She can babysit 5 kids at a time. She charges $20 an hour. Can you imagine that? She's making $100 an hour. There's workers who aren't making $100 an hour.
Somebody's got to work for those entrepreneurs.
Yeah, an entrepreneur's job is to create jobs. That's very simple.
But you're saying if you want to get rich, you need to be the one who's doing the employing rather than the one who's employed?
No, not necessarily. There's many ways. There's many ways to financial heaven, Like there's many ways to heaven. You can be Catholic, Buddhist, Muslim, Jewish. There's a lot of ways to heaven. There's the same way to getting rich. And since I really had no real skills, being an entrepreneur was the best way. Because I enjoy entrepreneurship. And I don't want a job. I don't want a paycheck. I don't want a pension. I don't want any of those things. I just want my freedom. So I'm more like my poor dad, a man who had no education, than my rich dad, a PhD, poor, helpless, desperate. But he was terrified of losing his job. And when he lost his job, he was completely wiped out. He was only 50.
Wow.
So that's why I'm an entrepreneur. I learned from both my dads, which one do I want to be like?
And likewise, my father was retrenched a number of times later in life, and it really, sucked the spirit out of him. Because, that was what we believed you needed to do. You got a job. Right. You didn't have that, entrepreneurial mindset. But again, it's tough out there as an entrepreneur, right? Hey, you know how tough it is, right?
It's hard.
You're the world's #1 personal finance guru, and you've gone bankrupt, right?
No, I have never been bankrupt.
No.
I've lost a company, but I've never gone bankrupt. Very big difference. Okay. You see that most employees think going bankrupt is terrible. Most times you lose a company, but you don't take it personally. So there's personal bankruptcy, which many employees go through. But an entrepreneur, I have 27 companies. I lost one.
That's actually a pretty good ratio.
Damn right.
Right. And that's the thing. We've got to be willing. You never lose. You either earn or you learn.
Failure is how we learn. Success means failing. If you stop failing, you stop succeeding. So like a little baby learns how to walk by falling down, standing up, falling down, standing up. Hopefully the Springboks learn from losing to Japan, and next World Cup they'll take the World Cup back, But failure is spiritual. It should upset you so much. You want to get back there and fight back. But we have in your country and my country, well, just give me the money. Just give me the money and I'll be rich. And that's called the entitlement program, and that robs the spirit. See, entrepreneurship is a spirit. It's not about money. It's about this game we play.
Right, and that's something that you are outspoken about, is this entitlement out there that the government's got to take care of you, that you've got to take care of yourself.
Well, it's spiritual. I don't want anybody taking care of me. I don't want the government to give me a handout here and then. I don't think anybody owes me a living.
But is capitalism not letting us down right now? We see a world in which, the gap between the rich and poor is getting wider and wider.
What's causing the gap between rich and poor school education system is obsolete. It's not preparing for people for the real world, a world that's fewer and fewer jobs, a world where we need more entrepreneurs to create jobs, that entitlement mentality people want to be given money. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I have a lot of friends with entitlement mentality. They're police officers, they're firefighters, they put their 20 in and say, okay, government owes me a living now. If that's what you want to believe in, it's a free country. But it's not what I want to believe in. I'm an entrepreneur. See, the difference between an entrepreneur and a small businessman is this. If you ever see my chart, it goes E, S, B, and I. S is small business specialist, like a doctor or a lawyer. That's not who I am. I am big business, 500 employees or more, but mostly I'm an investor. And as an investor, I don't invest in the stock market. What I do is I put deals together. So what entrepreneurs are constantly doing are putting deals together, raising the capital, structuring the thing, and moving on. That's why Donald Trump and I are really good friends. We put deals together. Some of them don't work. Big deal. But for the employee, that's failing. To an entrepreneur, I go, oh, good. That didn't work, but I learned I can build the next company better.
That cash flow quadrant of yours was one of the biggest aha moments in my life, and I think in many people's lives. Just starting to see where money comes from. You're either an entrepreneur, you're an investor, you're an employee, or you're a specialist consultant.
Small business guy.
Or small business guy, right? And you want people to move into the investor or business owner quadrants, or if you are an employee, you better make sure that you're getting your cash flow from somewhere else, that you don't want to be only in one of those quadrants.
Well, I'm not being dogmatic about it. All I did with the quadrant was I gave a person, these are your 4 choices in life. And most people only know one: go to school and get a job and be an employee and then have the government take care of you. Well, that's not my quadrant. If that's your quadrant, have a good time. The S quadrant, which is small business, that's like the golfer. The golfer's a guy that's they do everything on them, they take every shot by themselves, and that's most small business guys. They're called tradespeople, they're called craftsmen. And a craftsman is somebody who can do their job on their own. Doctors are craftsmen, they can do their job on their own. Attorneys are craftsmen, they can do their jobs on their own. In the B quadrant, that's like a rugby team. You cannot do the job on your own. So a B quadrant guy wants the best team. I want the best players, this. It's not size, it's the love of the game, The I quadrant, all they want is the best assets. So when I was old enough to make a decision, I wanted to be in the I quadrant. So I came through the E, S, B, and I to get to the I quadrant.
And that's fascinating that you see an entrepreneur as a team player, because I think a lot of people see the entrepreneur as the golfer, the rock star, the Branson, the Zuckerberg, the Steve Jobs. But you say, no, these guys are actually more like rugby players than golfers.
Right. And I play the game like a rugby team. I shouldn't criticize, but was it the Stormers versus the Chiefs, Kiwi team? And the South African team's almost like rugby league. They pitch the ball and they go straight ahead. Whereas the Kiwis, their split second, that ball is moving so fast out, and then they get a 3-man overlap on the outside. To me, it's obvious that something's got to change with the Springbok style of rugby. The game has gotten faster, quicker, more sophisticated. And it makes all the difference. And I'm an American, I can see it.
Well, yeah, I guess that says it all. But isn't that a great analogy for entrepreneurship?
Yes.
That you cannot stand still. You can't keep doing things the way you've always been doing them. The game changes.